guys, and today we're here to chat all about my favorite bronzers, more specifically bronzers that I think are suitable for someone around my skin tone. I don't know what you want to call it, medium, tan, NC42, and some of these go a little bit deeper, and I'll kind of chat my way through each of the bronzers, and that way you can kind of figure out which one may work for you, be it price, availability, shade range, or brand. In addition to that, these are just ones that I haven't mentioned previously. So I've done two of these videos before talking about my favorite bronzers. One is probably from like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, but I still kind of love all of those. So I will link to those two previous videos down below if none of these really tickle your fancy. But let me know if you'd like to see like a best for NC42 series. I don't want to like polarize and leave anybody out, but just because these work for me doesn't mean they're not going to work for you, whether you're an NC15 or an NC55, because there are different shades, of course, but I was thinking about doing blushes and maybe nude lipsticks or something like that, but let's go ahead and get started. A bronzer that I have been using non-stop since I got it is from Becca, and this is the Sunlit bronzer, and this one is in the shade Ipanema Sun. I believe this comes in 5 different shades, and there is a shade above this one as well, and I'm pretty sure Jackie Aina uses that one. I can't remember specifically. I think she does use it, but that means that that shade will at least work for you if you're around her shade range, and then I think there are 3 shades underneath this one. This is really, really beautiful. It has a satin finish, and when you look up close, there's like a little bit of a shimmer in there, but I don't see any of that translated onto my skin. In general, I don't like a shimmery bronzer, but this just has such a natural, beautiful finish, and because it has that little bit of a sheen in it, it really does not end up looking flat on your skin. And I would say this is like a neutral leaning warm undertone, so it is actually a really good bronzer. Sometimes things will be more contoury, sometimes things will be super, super red and orange, and I in general like something neutral leaning warm, and this is just a perfect shade for me, and I can more or less use this all year round. A newer bronzer to the market that I've really been enjoying is from Anastacio. This one is in the shade Rich Amber. I think again there's 5 or 6 in the range here, and I probably could have went a shade down, but when I bought this, I actually purchased it from their website when it first launched, so I really wasn't sure what shade to pick up because their swatches, like bronzer swatches, I think are the most confusing. Even when you see a bronzer in person and swatch it on your hand, to me, I don't know if it's just me or my skin tone or my face is just lighter than my body, but there's things that I'll swatch on my hand that I'm like, that won't work on my face, and then I put it on my face and it does. Sometimes it's not going to be hugely impactful, but sometimes I just want to add a little bit of color to my face. Anyways, that's a sidebar, but I really, really like this bronzer. This one is completely matte, and it has a really, really nice texture, and from what I can tell from people that have used it since it's launched, they do seem to go deep if you do have a deeper skin tone than me, because I know finding bronzers when you have a deeper skin tone or a more fair skin tone, if you're on either end of the spectrum, it can be really tricky, and I had a lot of trouble for years too, because I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, even with foundations. You know, I'm not tan, I'm not dark, so I'm not a medium, I'm not a deep, I'm somewhere in the middle, and I feel like ranges have gotten better, but of course, you know, there's always room to grow. But keep in mind, if you are kind of looking for a bronzer, that you can use a face powder, a powder foundation, anything that has a little pigmentation in there, because it's just a powder, you know, it's just for your face. You're just adding to look color, you're just looking to add color, and just keep in mind the undertone is going to be something that works for your skin tone. But this is a super, super blendable, buildable, great matte bronzer. This has quite a bit of warmth to it, but by no means is it orange. A bronzer that I really, really love, but was kind of hesitant to mention in this video, is from Physicians Formula. This is their butter bronzer, and people have been raving about this forever. And if you are on the more fair end of the spectrum, I believe that the initial launches of this product will definitely work for you. They have since released 2 more shades. This is the deepest one here in Deep Bronzer, and this is kind of one of those shades that I swatched it on my hand. So I actually went to the Canadian launch for this, and I was with the Physicians Formula team, and I was like, you know, kudos. I'm so glad that I can finally use this bronzer because it's incredible. It's satiny, highly scented. It's not scented after you put it on your face, but keep that in mind if you don't like that kind of thing. It's very coconutty. Packaging is kind of bulky. It comes with a useless brush, but the actual formula is incredible. One of the best at the drugstore, comparable to something like the Becca in texture, because it has that really nice satin, natural, super buildable, very hard to overdo kind of texture. But the problem with this is the shade range. Even though they have released 2 more shades. There's no way that this would work for anybody deeper than me, and I have color right now because I'm just back from holiday, and I don't know that this would even work for me now. So I actually said to the team at this brunch, I was like, you know, really, really exciting that you've come out with new shades, but I showed her on the back of my hand, I was like, I'm not even that dark, and this is only going to just work for me. And they've released new shades of foundation that actually go quite deep from what I can tell, and I think that they should at the very least have tried to release, you know, 4 or 5 more shades so that you would have a shade for everybody in your foundation range. It's very, very frustrating to see, and you know, I'm glad that they're extending their shade ranges. That's what we've asked for, so we can't wrong them for doing that, but it still definitely leaves some room for improvement. But if you are my shade or lighter, this is definitely an incredible bronzer. The Balm has been one of my favorite brands for years and years and years, and they had the Bahama Mama, which I do like, but I find that one is quite cool toned. Recently, they released these ones. These are the Take Home the Bronze. I have the original launch because they named them after award ceremonies, and I don't know if they got in trouble, but they've since changed the names. But I have Tony and I have Graham E. They kind of name their products after guys, which I think is funny. But the shade that I wear is Tony. I think it's called Thomas now, I can't remember exactly. But there's 3 different shades in the range. So this is the middle shade, which I think is really nice. It is quite warm, but again, as they call it, it's the anti-orange bronzer. So really beautiful, soft, buildable formula. It is quite pigmented. I find the Balm is always creating really, really pigmented products, but just keep in mind to go a little bit lighter in your application and just kind of build it up slowly. And then I also do have the deeper shade here too. This one is in the shade Grammy. I'm not sure what it's actually called now, but this one goes a little bit deeper as well if you do have a more deep skin tone. And the Balm actually, when I go on their website, like if you live in the United States, their products are actually the same price as a lot of drugstore products, which has really, really surprised me. In Canada, unfortunately, the shipping from their website is quite expensive, but there are other ways to get your hands on their products, and these ones are completely matte as well. I placed an order from Colourpop a few months back and decided to try out one of their pressed bronzers, and the shade that I got is really not that good of a shade for me. I'll link the shade name down below because I have it put in this pan and I don't want to try and get it out, but I did want to mention it because this isn't even the deepest shade, and I found like I can make this work, but it's not my favorite undertone, and the depth is just a little bit too much for me. But I wanted to point it out because if you are deeper than me, this could be a great option for you. Super affordable, and in addition to that, this isn't the deepest shade. So it's not that I'm not really reaching for it just because of the shade, but the actual formula is really nice, and I did use it in a full face of Colourpop or a trying out new Colourpop video if you'd like to see it in action. I can make it work with a lighter hand, but if you are my shade and you were looking to pick up a Colourpop bronzer, I would probably go with the next shade down because I felt this one was a little too red for me, but overall the actual formula of it is really nice and the shade range looks quite good too. Next to the Becca bronzer, a bronzer that I have been using non-stop for about a year. Whenever I'm like traveling or going out, or I kind of reach for the same products because I know I can count on them. And another one that I love is from Lorac, and I don't feel like Lorac gets enough love. Again, they're one of my favorite brands. I guess I was influenced by YouTube initially and purchased some of their products that again are harder to find in Canada, but whenever I've been to Ulta, I pick things up. You can also buy it on Amazon, and this is their Tan Lines bronzer, and yeah, the buildable bronzing powder in Tan Lines. Sorry, Tan Lines is the shade, and this is just such a good shade for me. Not too warm, not too cool, and like when I hold it up to my face, like it looks like the same color as my face. That's why bronzers to me are so confusing, and you really need to get them on your face. But keep in mind, if you ever purchase a bronzer from Sephora or Ulta, you can return it after it's been used if for some reason it doesn't end up working for you. But this is a completely matte bronzer, super buildable as they say, but very, very powdery, not as buildable, I would say, as something like the Butter bronzer from Physicians Formula. There's more pigmentation in here because it is matte. Something with a satin finish I feel like is going to be a little more forgiving, but not that this is not forgiving, it just has a little more pigmentation. So I just think it just blends really, really nice. There's a pretty good shade range. I haven't actually seen it all in person because I did order this from Ulta, but there are a good few shades in the range, and I really, really love Lorac. I don't think it gets enough love, and the packaging is super, super gorgeous. Lastly, another more affordable option is from Makeup Geek. I haven't talked about them in a while, but this one is in the shade Burnished, and this one is quite a cool toned bronzer. This is something that I would probably use more more for a contour on my skin, but it is quite deep, and I believe there's another shade above which I wanted to mention, and I know her shades go quite fair as well. And like I said, not many people are talking about Makeup Geek anymore, and I just wanted to give this a quick shout out because they do have a good shade range. This one is completely matte. There's no shimmer in there. It is very, very pigmented, especially where I'm using this as contour. I definitely need to go in with a light hand, but I think that she has quite a good shade range, and she does the same for her blushes and her highlights as well. There's quite a nice range in there for just about any skin tone from what I can tell, and they are available now at Target. Of course, we do not have a Target here in Canada, so I don't really know what the range of products are there, but I have ordered from her website and have had a good experience, and I think her products are on Beauty Bay as well. So I'm gonna stop there. I've got a few more, but I should probably save it for another video. I don't want to overload you with too much information, but just keep in mind when you're trying to pick out your own bronzer, if you can test it out, I find that especially helpful. Or, you know, pick it up from Sephora and return it if it doesn't work for you. Don't feel bad. You're allowed to do that, because for some reason bronzers to me are just very, very confusing. I didn't even wear it for years. The first one I ever wore was the NYX matte bronzer, and I was like, oh, that actually works for my skin, and I've since used that and I'm like, oh, that's super cool toned. I would definitely use that more as a contour now. So it just takes a little time, play around, do it at night before you go to bed, before you wash your makeup off. But now bronzing is like one of my favorite things to do. So let me know down below what your favorite bronzers are. I also have a bunch of like cream contours and kind of cream bronzers that I want to mention. So let me know if you'd like a cream version of this video, because I've really gotten into it and it can look super gorgeous and natural. But if you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at SamanthaJaneYT, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!